In this video, I'll be teaching you how to create resource group, NIC, NSG, IP, virtual machine, and how you can SSH into that virtual machine. So let's get started. First thing first, let's create our resource group. So click on create. You can also come here. It's the same thing. You can come here, click on create, or you come here, click on create, either ways. Alright, so let's name it tests RG. RG stands for resource group, so tests RG. Now we want to deploy it in, let's use South African nodes. Then nothing else to do, just to click on review and create. Then so validation part, then we click on create, so validating. So our test RG resource group has been created. So the next thing we want to do is to come to this search box and then we search for VNet, that is virtual network. So we want to create a virtual network. Like I said, you can come here to create or you can come here to create, either ways. If you click on any one of them, you click on you are going to get the same results. Alright, so by default our test group has been selected. If you have more than one, you'll have seen, let's say you have 3 resource groups, you'll have seen the name of those resource groups here, but I only created one, so I have test RG here. And if you have more than one subscription, you have it. I only have one subscription. Then if you want to create another resource group, you can create it from here, but for the sake of this video, I'll be creating everything one after the other. So now virtual network name, let's give it tests vnet. So I name it test vnet. Now the region obviously is picking the same region we selected from test RG, which is South African North. So after that, we click on next. Then all this, just leave it as it is. Leave it as it is. See, enable Azure firewall, just leave this as it is. We are going to do every of this later on, not in this video but later on. So click on next. Then we want to create our subnet. This is subnet. We want to create our subnet separately, so I'm going to delete this. Now this is our CIDR range. This is our CIDR range. Now that means inside this we can have 65,536 addresses, IP addresses. If let me select 24, you realize that it has reduced to 256. So if I go back to 16, we have this. If I go to, let me select 8, now we have 16,700,000. You see how many addresses it can take, but for the sake of this video, let's just leave it at 16. And most companies cannot exhaust all this, so leave it at 16. Then we click on next. Then it's checking for validation. All right, so it's ready. The next thing we are going to click on is to click on create. Now it's deployed. We are deploying our virtual network. All right, so our virtual network has successfully deployed. So let's click on go to resource. Now let's come to your left hand side, click on subnet. What we want to do is to create subnet inside our virtual machine. So click on subnet. Purpose, we are leaving purpose as default. Now let's say we want to do bastion firewall, we are going to select something else, but for this purpose, we are just leaving it as default because we are not doing bash channels or any of those. And name, we are going to give it test subnet. So test subnet. Now it's under range 16. I've explained this already. So you see we have 256 addresses. So that's all for here. Click on add. So we have this, our test subnet is ready. So the next thing we want to create now is NIC, network interface. NIC. The full meaning of NIC is actually network interface card. So we create on NIC, then we click on create network interface. If you are thinking, what does NIC has to do with virtual machine? Virtual machine is like your computer, your laptop, and there are so many components that makes your laptop to be working. We have motherboard, we have your memory, we have your RAM, we have processor, we have a whole lot of that. And one of the things that makes your computer, your laptop to connect to internet is network interface. I'm so sure if you've opened your laptop before, you'll have seen this. You'll have seen this. This is the card. Let's say you don't want to connect wirelessly. That's when you connect with what they call with a cable. The cable goes here. So now if you want to connect wirelessly, this is what you you this is what makes your laptop to connect to the internet. So that's why your virtual machine needs network interface card for it to work. So as usual, it just our what's it called? This network watcher RG is just Azure doing that thing. You have no business with it. So click on test RG. Then we are going to give our network interface card the name. I'll give it test NIC. Then, since resource group has been selected by default, our region will be South Africa North, what we've selected before. So on our virtual network, the one we created is test vnet. That's why this is very important, because anytime we see new blah blah blah, look at it very well. Is this what you created? This is Azure trying to help you to create a virtual network. But click on this and make sure that it is the one that you created by yourself, which is test vnet. Select that. Then under subnet, you click on this, select the one that we created, which is test subnet. You click on that. Then we want it to have IPv4. IPv4 is something like this, which is, if you count it 1, 2, 3, 4, it has three dotted. It's three dotted, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 dots. But if you can't count this, realize that this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. That is IPv4. It has 4 dotted numbers. IPv6, we have 6. Instead of we counting for here, it's going to have 6. Well, we are not doing IP addresses here, I just branch. So now we want the IP address to be dynamic. Then we click on, well, there's no point tag. Let's just click on review plus create. So what's going to do now is going to validate. After the validation has been successful, then you can click on create. So it's still running validation. All right, so it has passed. Then we click on create. All right, so our NIC is ready. We can go to resource. All right, Now we have our test NIC, and here is it. Then the next thing we want to do is to click on IP configuration. Then select enable IP forwarding, select that. Now the subnet, we needed to be sure that it is test subnet. Okay, so then we click on this IPv4 config. Now then we click on associate public IP address. So let's check. Let's create our own. This is the one Azure wants to give to us by default, but let's click on create a public IP. Now I'm going to give the IP a name. I'm going to give it test IP. So want it to be, it can be, let's leave it as standard. So let's click on OK. Then we click on save. Now our IP is being deployed, deployment in progress. All right, so now all this has been deployed. Let's scroll down. We should have our public IP. Can you see? Can you see in the front test IP? That's the name of IP I created, and this is the public IP. This is the public IP. So now the next thing we want to do now is to create NSG, network security groups. I've been using this creating this site, so let's use this for now, for this, to show that it's the same results we are going to get. So the question is, what exactly does network security groups do, or group? It's basically to control inbound and outbound rule. Inbound means traffic coming from the internet into your resource. In this case, the resource you want to create is virtual machine. So that means public internet coming to your virtual machine. That is inbound. Outbound means the response your virtual machine is giving out to the traffic that is coming in. It's just basically your virtual machine responding back to the public internet. That is outbound rule. So this is what actually controls that, the inbound and outbound rule. Now the resource, the same thing, test RG. Let's give our NSG name. Let's say tests NSG. Obviously South African nodes. Then there's nothing more to do. You can give it a tag if you want, but it's not a must. Then we click on review plus create. Like before, it will do the validation thing. Then after the validation has been successful, we click on create. So now we click on create. All right, so our NSG is ready. Let's click on go to resource. Now we have all these. We are coming to this. The first thing we want to do is to click on subnets. Now we want to associate that test subnet that we created the other time. We want to associate it with our test NSG. So basically we are associating the subnet and the NSG together. So click on associate. Now virtual network, make sure it's test vnet, and subnet is test subnet. So click on OK. This is us associating the NSG with the subnet and vnet. All right, that has been successful. Now we can come here to our inbound security rule and open port 20 and port 80. Port 20 is for SSH, for you to be able to SSH. The full meaning of SSH is secure shell host for you to be able to SSH into your virtual machine. That is port 20. Port 80 is HTTP, not HTTPS, HTTP, for you to see if your server is working, if let's say you deploy something on a server and if the thing is working. All right. For now, we are not going to create port 80 and 20 yet because I would like to show you something. So now the next thing we want to do, I would like to create our Azure in new slide because we are coming back to this. So I've created, what I did is to right click on this and click on open link in new tab. So this is loading now. Now, if you look very well, these are the things that we've deployed. We've deployed NSG, resource group, NIC, and VNet. So what we want to do now is to create our virtual machine. Now, create. All right, so we want to create our virtual machine. As usual, click on this, then click on test RG. Now our virtual machine, let's give it a name. I will name it test VM. The region, as usual, South Africa. Okay, availability zone, let's just leave it as availability zone. Then you can select zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 here, but just leave it as zone 1. Image, let's go for Ubuntu server 22.04. Image is basically the OS you are using, that image, the OS of your laptop. Then size 3.5 gig. Well, you can come here to select something more bigger. You see 8 gig 92.71 per month, but because this one is 3.5, you can actually see your sizes. You can just play around. Then should we use SSH public key? Let's use password. I will do another video that we are going to use SSH public key. So username, I will say test VM. Let me make everything small later. Test VM. Password, I will just make sure your password has capital letter, small letter, and a special number, and it should be like, I think it's long, eight number long, or 8 alphabet long. So now public inbound ports, we want it to be none, because remember we've created our NSG. We've created our NSG. So then you click on next. Let's just leave this as default. You can select whatever you want. See, you can go as high as 2 terabytes. So then click on next. Now if you look to my right, you see estimated monthly cost. So it's just telling you what, see, disk, this is how much it's be costing you. Your public IP, this is how much it will be costing you. So now, okay, virtual network, test VNet, subnet, test subnet, public IP, we are putting none. Remember, our NIC has IP address. So now scroll down, delete NIC when VM is deleted. You can select this. So scroll down, then we click on, you can leave this as defaults. Next, basically there is nothing more to do here. Let's just click on review plus create. The validation has been passed. Then we click on create. Now we are creating our virtual machine. Now our virtual machine has been deployed. Now I want you to see something. Let's click on deployment details. Can we see our test virtual machine? Then can you see test VM blah blah blah? If you look at it very well, can you see network interface? Because a virtual machine cannot work without network interface. So yet we still have this, though we are going to remove it. Now, admin, we selected all those places we are selecting none. Admin, we did not select it. We have many other resources that Azure is going to create for us by default. But in this video, I'm actually teaching you how you can create all these things by yourself without rely on Azure creating all these things for you by default. Because if you are used to Azure creating these things for you by default, when you are starting Terraform, you start having issues. Because in Terraform, you have to deploy, you have to provision all these resources on Terraform one after the other. So now let's go to resource. Now, if you look at this very well, there is public IP and our public IP is actually blank. Nothing is there. Now, what we want to do now, we want to go to, which one should we do first? Okay, let's go to network settings. Let's refresh. So let's click on network settings. Now, here, remember that NIC, I was telling you that Azure created for us. This is what we have here. That is exactly what we have here. Test VM 260 blah blah blah. So what we actually want to do is to attach the NIC that we've created. So now, network security group test NSG, let's click on that. Then now we are in our test NSG, which is this place. The question is, everything I want to do here, let's go back. Let me go back. We are here, okay? Let's do everything we want to do here. Now, remember, this is our network security group. So click on add. Then source, we leave it at earning, destination earning, service custom. Now we want this to be TCP. Then let's click on custom. Let's select SSH. Allow, we can leave this as 100, though we are going to get warning, but this is just for training purposes. Now the one we are getting, let me show you that we open port 22 to everybody. Anybody that has the password and the IP, the person can do any damage. A lot of damage can be done to this virtual machine. That's the one we are getting here. So we want to open port 80 as well, which is HTTP port 80. So one thing is fine. Then we click on add. All right. So now let me refresh our virtual machine again. So pay attention, public IP is still vacant. Now, if I want to look at the NSG from my virtual machine to look at the network, so I go to network settings, I scroll down. Can you see everything we've done here? It's here now. Can you see port 22, port 80 has been opened? So now the next thing I want to do, I want to attach my NIC to the virtual machine. So I need to stop this virtual machine from running. That's the first thing I want to do. I'm stopping my virtual machine from running. For me to associate the NIC that we created to the virtual machine, I need to first stop the virtual machine. Then I can now associate the NIC with the virtual machine. So let's see. Okay, it's still trying to stop. All right, our VM has successfully stopped. Now, let's go to NIC. This is the one created by Azure, the one we don't want, and this is the one we created by ourselves. So I just click on the one we created by ourselves, which is test NIC. Then I want to go to network security group, make sure that my NIC is communicating with my NSG. Then I click on save. All right, that has been saved. So now let me go back to my virtual machine, click on network settings. Then I click on this drop down. I can see this. Then I want to click on attach network interface. Now I click on this. Now can you see test NIC? I click on that, then I click on OK. What I'm doing now is to attach my test NIC, the network interface card that we created, to the virtual machine I created. I'm not using the network interface card that Azure created for me by default. Now it's connecting. All right, so our NIC has been associated with our virtual machine. So what we want to do is to detach the one that Azure created for, which is test VM blah blah blah. Even see the name. So we want to detach that. We click on OK. So detaching network interface. Remember, we are detaching the one Azure created for us. We now attach the one we created by ourselves. Even by the name, you can see this is test NIC, the one we created, and we are detaching the NIC Azure created for us. So detached network interface, that has been detached successfully. So what we want to do now is to come to the left side, go to overview, then click on start. So we are restarting our virtual machine back. Now, can you see that now our public IP address is here? We have public IP address. So now, since we have our public IP address now we can SSH into our virtual machine. So we are waiting for our virtual machine to start running. So it's still loading. Okay, so it has started. Now it's running. So let's copy this public IP. Now, if you are using Apple OS, go to your terminal, just search terminal, then your terminal is using the same command that I'm going to be using. If you're on Windows, try to download git bash. Git bash. See, git bash download. just click on download and just follow through. You download, you install it. If you are using Mac, you don't need to install Git Bash. Just on your whatever, just search for terminal, then you follow everything I'm about to do. I'm using Windows obviously, so I'm going to use Git Bash. Now, here's the interface of Git Bash. I want to make this writing bigger. Immediately you enter, don't worry, here is my own computer name, your own computer name, everything will show like as this. So now I want to make this bigger. To make it bigger, just press down Control on your keyboard, then the plus sign, just tap the plus sign, keep tapping it until you are okay with the size of the text. So now what I want to do is to type SSH, then the username, which is test VM small letter true at, then the public, oh, I thought I've copied the public IP. Let me go back. So click on this, copied, then the public IP, then we press enter. So SSH, now it's saying can establish blah 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 blah, just type yes, then press enter. Now I need to put my password. Now it's not showing because for security purposes this cursor was not moving, so I've tapped my password, then I press enter. Now boom, I'm inside my virtual machine. As you can see, you see test VM at test VM. Now test VM is my username, test VM is the name of my virtual machine. Let me explain that again. This is the name of my virtual machine. This is the name of the username of the virtual machine. So if I type am I, see test VM. So now the first thing we want to do is to update this virtual machine. So we are going to do sudo. Whatever you are doing on virtual machine, use sudo 90% of the time, or else you are going to get error. So sudo apt update. Now it's very important that you update your virtual machine so that you not have outdated dependencies and not just update it. So sudo apt update, press enter. Now it's updating, making sure everything is working fine and working okay. Now hidden packages can be upgraded. Run apt list upgrade to see them. You see? So now what we want to do is to let's install NGINX server. So sudo apt install NGINX. Sudo apt install NGINX. I press Y, then enter. Now our server is working. How do we know? We can do coil, then the public IP. Have I copied something else? Let me go and copy it back. public IP, paste, then enter. Now, can you see welcome to NGINX? That means NGINX is on this IP. For us to be double sure, let me copy the public IP, then I can open new slide, just paste the public IP in my browser. Yes, because it's HTTP, Chrome is telling me that, oh, now as you can see, welcome to NGINX. So we've installed our server on our virtual machine. Now we can continue to deploy our JavaScript, our web app, our whatever on this. However, I will stop here. So now let's say you are done with all this and you want to tear down. How do you tear down? So to tear down, go to resource groups, click on this test resource group, then can you see delete resource group? Instead of you tearing down one after the other, deleting all this one after the other, you can do everything at once. So just copy, click on here, then paste, then click on delete. It will take a couple of time. This network watchout that Azure created for us, I want to delete it as well because it's shown as a resource group. So click on resource group, delete resource group, copy this, then paste, then delete. Now everything inside this resource group will be deleted. If you have any question, put it in my comment section. I will try as much as possible to respond. You are welcome.